John Updike once said, "Writing is only reading turned inside out." When I was younger, I started reading at a very young age. I was always reading to people, trying to use every chance I could to show off my reading skills to anyone and everyone. All throughout elementary school and middle school, anytime I had some spare time, I would always be reading. Of course, when middle school came, my reading turned into writing. As I learned how to write about the books that I read, whether it be for school or for fun, I grew up to write more and more and love it. When I got into high school, I started struggling with my writing. My teacher noticed this and she did everything that she could to help me. It all started in the freshman year of high school. It was a new school, new classes, and new teachers. I was going through a rough time, especially in the first week of school. I lost all of my friends and I was being bullied a little bit. By the first day of classes, I walked into my homeroom for the second time of the day, because my homeroom teacher was also my English teacher, and my teacher's name was Mrs. Dragna. She seemed very, very nice, so I wasn't worried for the class of that year, because I had always been all right in my English classes, and I didn't really ever struggle, but little did I know I was going to be so wrong that year. Mrs. Dragna started going over our syllabus that first day and projects we would be doing during the year. I wasn't too worried, so I just sat there listening intensely. At the end of the first class, she passed out the list of books for our first reading we were going to be doing in that class. The first novel she was going to be having us read was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And I was very excited because I heard very good things about this novel from peers older than me that I had already taken the class. We started reading the novel in class, and every couple chapters or so, we would have a quiz on what we remember from the chapters we had just read. Of course, there's always a short answer section, so we actually had to use our brains instead of just choosing multiple choices. I always thought I had done well on those first few quizzes, but when I received the grades back, they were very much the opposite of what I thought I was going to receive, and I was very, very frustrated. Up until then, I had always done well on my papers and tests, but now I was facing an almost failing grade, and it was only the first week of school. On our second week of school, Mrs. Dragna gave us the assignment to write a letter to our senior selves, and then another one for the end of our freshman year. In these letters, we were supposed to talk about how life was going on at the moment, and then write about our hopes and ambitions and what we wished to accomplish. The goal of these letters was to look back on them at the end of freshman year and also at the end of senior year and see how far we've come academically and socially. I turned mine in, not thinking anything of it, but little did I know that what I had written in my freshman letter would secretly help me throughout all of that year. As the weeks went by, we were reading more and more, still taking quizzes and writing more papers about what we were reading. By maybe the first or second month, I had given up putting an effort on reading my assignments and writing my essays. I had given up because I wasn't used to failing at anything until now, and because I had not done well on my first few quizzes, it had deterred me, and I stopped putting effort into my other classes as I knew I wasn't doing well in my English class. Towards the middle of the semester, our teacher assigned the class to read Romeo and Juliet, which everyone knows is a fantastic love story. But we weren't going to just read it. We were going to read it, and then our big project for that book was she was going to be putting us into groups and then giving each group an assigned scene from the book/movie, and we would be acting it out. And so in my group, I was assigned to be Juliet, and the assigned scene from the book is at the very end when Juliet basically fakes her own death and then Romeo actually dies and then she has to die. I was really scared because I was already failing, and because I was failing, I had given up on reading the assignments. With this one, my teacher encouraged me to actually read the book and put effort into my assignments. My group did very well, and reenacting that as a project helped me gain confidence back that I could pull up my grade. Now, one day my mom had told me that my teacher had emailed me and told her I was failing my class and a few of my other classes too. My mom told me I was going to start staying after school and finish my English homework, and Mrs. Dragna would check it over to make sure I was finished. Not only that, but to make sure I started turning in my missing assignments for at least partial grades, because at the point I was at, anything I turned in would only help my grade. I was a little reluctant at first. I started staying after school in Mrs. Dragna's room and slowly started working towards finishing my assignments. I had missed a few essays, and the few essays I had turned in, I didn't do well on, so Mrs. Dragna helped me to work towards slowly being able to write my essays and receive credit on them. Soon I was almost caught up and feeling better about being able to work on assignments and write without feeling frustrated that I didn't know what I was writing about and giving up. I was so used to staying after school at this point and working on my English assignments in her class that I had caught up and I started bringing my grade up. And I just decided to keep going after school and staying in her classroom and working on a few other assignments. And a few other students would be in the classroom just asking for help or asking her a question about the assignment. I had become so accustomed to staying after school that every time I walked in the classroom after school, she would ask me what music we were going to listen to that day while we were working on different things. She would help me with my English assignments and give me tips and points for my essays. I would work on other homework too because I can stay in there as long as she's working on her stuff in there, and then when she would leave, I would just leave. She held me accountable for assignments I did not do well on and helped me when I was feeling frustrated with a writing assignment. Staying after school helped raise my grade. I was feeling very good about the exams that were coming up. Exams finally came up, and we took them a few weeks before school ended. I was in that classroom every day after school to study and try and do my best. After the exams were taken, I was so heartbroken to find out I received an almost failing grade. I didn't understand what had gone wrong because I had studied so hard and made sure not to forget anything, but when that exam came, all that knowledge went out the window. So Mrs. Dragna called me into her classroom a few days later after the exam and talked to me about what happened. I was so distraught, and she told me if I had studied hard and could show her that I had learned all the information and could prove that I deserved a second chance at the exam, she would let me retake it. So for the next couple days, I worked hard and harder than I'd ever worked with her to create good memorization skills and ways to remember the information better. And in the end, I was able to retake the exam. She graded the exam in front of me after I took it, and I ended up receiving a B, which brought my grade up significantly. I was so proud of myself for trying my best. At the end of the year, I asked Miss Dragna why she helped me so much and went through all of the effort just to make sure I learned the material and came to her classroom every day for all of those hours of tutoring and class homework help. She told me that other than the fact that her job as a teacher was to help students, she really wanted to help me succeed. And she had asked me, she said, "Do you remember I had you write a letter at the beginning of the school year and to write what you were going through and hope to accomplish?" And of course I said yes. And I thought back at what I had written and realized something. In the beginning of the year, I wrote that I was not having a good time because the people I thought were my friends turned against me and started bullying me, and my grades started lacking in addition to that. Mrs. Dragna told me that when she had read my letter to myself when she was grading it, she had a feeling to keep an eye on me that year. And soon enough, that is when I started failing her class. And she told me that she had another feeling to suggest it in an email to my mother after school tutoring because she wanted to do everything she could to help me succeed. Little did I know, at the beginning of my freshman year, that it would be a very, very frustrating year. Mrs. Dragna not only knew I needed help with my studies, but also I needed a friend. When she helped me with my studies, my grades became better. And when my grades became better, my happiness levels rose and I started feeling more confident. And I was doing academically better in all of my classes. And I will always be thankful to my freshman English teacher who saw a student in need academically and socially and mentored her and helped her to be the student that she is today. And that is my story of how she influenced me to be the person I am today.